So behind you is the yucca, and Eugenie, feel free to bring in any Latin names if you want. She's such a great teacher to me. So this is the yucca, which I don't know if you've seen it growing on the Cape or in Connecticut and stuff. So this is a native wildflower, and I think it's just so fascinating and fabulous. It always blows my mind because I think of the desert, and I don't know if you know about tequila and agave, but tequila comes from the agave plant, which this is a member of that family. And so to me, it's crazy that it grows in the sands and the dunes of Cape Cod. When, I guess it isn't too bizarre because that's what the desert is like, but the fact that it tolerates the cold, I think that's awesome. And the leaves and stuff, and there's bugs down there. I love the stalk that comes up and the petals and the blooms. Okay, so over here we have, there's lots of ferns in the garden, and in the fall, here's the other thing about this garden, which Shirley Cross was so awesome about having the foresight to do. So not only did she create different areas, but she also created something that from March into November, is going to show you something different with the seasons and what's in bloom. So if you can come here, different times of the year, you're always going to get to experience something different. So we have wood aster growing all right here, which come the fall, it's going to be white flowers, all in the shade. And of course, these have escaped. Here's all the wood aster too. These show up all throughout the garden, which we actually pull because we don't want them everywhere, But and this is another plant we'll see in other spots. Here it is. Yeah. And down there, do you know what that is?
I grew it one time. It's the money
plant, right? So people love that because it turns silver in the fall and the coin-sized shape. But the flower, it's called Honesty. You wouldn't guess it, but it's just this beautiful purple, white blooms. And so that's early spring. Well, spring. So that's, we leave it to show the kids because it's fun, after it's bloomed. But so anyways, we have a number of ferns, which I know Eugenie knows a lot about. And going this way is the locust trees, which are a big part of the early settlers here in Cape Cod. And you'll still see fences a lot, like probably in Connecticut, all over the Cape, made from the wood from this that were built, hundreds of years ago, but still are standing because they're such strong, sturdy wood. The other thing about the locust, though, is now they're saying it's invasive to this area, but native to America, but not this far north. So either the settlers down in Virginia area, because they say naturally it went as far as Delaware. So either the settlers, people moving around brought it because it is such a strong wood, or, a squirrel carried the seeds. I'm just kidding. But,
not a squirrel, but
well, who knows, something
in the back of a truck.
Right, you never know. Well, before trucks, a wagon. But the locust blooms white, beautiful flowers, let's see, in May or June.
Wonderful
Beautiful.
fragrance.
So,
when they are blooming along Route 3. You can smell it as you drive past.
To me, I love the locust. That's why I talk about it. A lot of people talk about the flowers, which I will, but I have to highlight the locust because, like Eugenie said, the smell is wonderful. The bloom, I know one day, so a group of volunteers maintain this. I came on a Monday and I just kept taking photos of, the canopy because the flowers are so gorgeous. So this is digitalis, also known as foxglove, which maybe you grow or not the... Yeah. So we've left all the brown seed pods. You're probably wondering, that's the other thing about this garden. It's not one of your professionally manicured garden. I think, most gardens would take this right out and put in something else that's showy and flashy. But here, we see the season to the plant where, not just with foxglove, but what animal, insect is going to use the seeds, because birds often feed on the seeds. Also, it's how we get the plant to come back again, because this is just biennial. So the first year, it's just going to be green, and then the second year, it sends up these really high shoots that will get, at least 6 feet. Some don't. We cut the tops off of some of them because they were hitting people. But so we've left the seeds. Maybe in a week or so, we might trim it back, and then we'll put the seeds hopefully where we want them to show up. But otherwise, that's why they're still there. That's why you have these brown stalks. And this is our sassafras, sarsaparilla. Sorry, which
Does it have a smell?
No. It should. I know in the spring when it comes out, it's like it's in its autumn of its stages, But we, again, leave it, and that's a native plant. And this is feverfew, which is not native. That's from Europe, but it's an herb, and supposedly it deters headaches.
Homeopathic medicine.
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
So it's good for headaches. What's the Latin? It's in the chrysanthemum family. Chrysanthemum parathensis. So that would be the homeopathic that you'd see.
It's in the daisy family.
The daisy family. So it will help keep away headaches, but it also deters bees. Bees do not like that plant for whatever the reason is. The chemical that's in it, bees will not land on that. And you think, in the daisy family, who doesn't love daisies? But so you'll never see a bee land on feverfew. Over here we have bee balm, 2 varieties of bee balm, the pink and the purple. And this is a geranium, which I don't know. I mean, this blows my mind because I'm so used to the geraniums you see at your
annuals,
at your plant stores. Those will live though if you just take them, at least in New England, if you take them and store them in your basement, you can keep your geranium. But this is awesome because it's a wild geranium and it's called crane's bill, and it will bloom the whole summer for us, which I really appreciate, to have something blooming like that, because it is so showy. And this is the bed that has Shirley Cross's name, so I always call this Shirley's bed. But the geranium too will get very wide. It will keep getting bigger. Trillium, the seed pod.
Wow.
So that turns bright red, and the ants carry it around, and that's how trillium spreads, from the ants carrying the seeds. And each one of these is full of seeds, which I think is so cool. And that's cardinal flower. Soon the garden, we're going to have these pockets of awesome red. This plant is beautiful. This is our sea anemone, which I love the name because it almost does feel like a sea. It's got these beautiful white flowers, and it takes up this whole area. Here's the seed heads. So when it was in bloom, you can imagine just these beautiful, beautiful white flowers growing. And I love it because it grows in part shade.
And I've never seen it better than this year.
Oh.
I know. Well,
it really took off.
I know. So that's the thing. You in the garden, you love something and you want to help it shine, and then it really goes with it. So maybe next year we'll have to say, okay, now stay in your corner.
It's anemone canadensis, and I think it likes the cold winter.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Last year I know I came in here and I really tore things up because these were getting overgrown. These are rose mallow, which will get as high as me and have they're in the hibiscus family. They look like they're from Hawaii. Beautiful bloom as big as my hand, pink. So you've got to come back to see these because we've got a pocket here, another pocket over there. Some showed up in the meadow, which is exciting. You want things to show up, but then, like I keep saying, you've then got to maybe pull them back. So this is right next to a body of water called Smiling Pool, which is really wonderful for this garden to have a water source so close by. Sweet Bay Magnolia, which is hardy up to this zone, but it's so cool because the magnolia, you think the southern magnolia, Here are the seed pods. There's better examples, right? Can you see up here?
Oh, yes.
So it had beautiful white blossoms, which unfortunately I can't see. I know I could show people ones that had fallen, but amazing white blossoms, very fragrant. And the seed pods get about this big, and they're fun. People will make like spray paint them gold and make like a Christmas decoration or put them in wreaths and stuff, because they're such a unique part of the plant too. I love the magnolia because in this garden it creates such a fun archway. And of course it's leaning this way because we have
one flower on it.
Oh yes, see?
Ooh.
See that white flower? So it's turning yellow because it is, on its way out. But so just imagine bright white and beautiful. So it's leaning this way, which I love because it's trying to reach the sun, because the Japanese maple behind you is obviously, that's this maple right here.
It's a big one, yep.
And then we have the locust growing and also that cedar. But so the Japanese maple, this is an amazing species to have here in the garden. The fact that it's so big and so old. They lived to be around 130 years, and it was planted by Ida, who owned this house originally. So she planted this around 1900. So the Franklinia was named after Benjamin Franklin, and only one was ever found growing in the wild. And this was down south, I think Georgia maybe?
Georgia on the Attamaha River.
On the Attamaha River. So that must be a native river name. And a friend of Ben found the plant, gifted it to...
No, he was a nurseryman.
A nurseryman?
Yeah, the one who found it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name.
I know somehow it becomes a gift here to Shirley, though, which was such an honor. But so when you can see that in bloom too, it's really a statement. And again, it is does not have a long lifespan, so we are seeing it in its more mature stages of its life.
And what
it's
color is the
marginally
White.
hardy around here.
White flower.
Yeah, white flowers.
Yeah, and it blooms in September and October, which is nice.
And
then the leaves turn red. And it has the white flowers against the red leaves. And it's quite
And it's
beautiful.
fun to have them, you know, when they're falling, the petals, similar to the magnolia. It's fun to be here when there's flower petals up above you, like the locust.
And another thing that blooms very late, and that is the Montauk daisy or Nippon daisy.
Which is not native. However, when Shirley was doing this garden, she did such a good job of putting native plants in here. But she also, it was a time, say before, having native was so important to the whole ecosystem. And when she was a traveler, and when she would travel, and she also was a botanist, she would bring plants back because it was donation based, and a lot of these plants were started from her nursery, you know, in her greenhouses from seedlings, or were gifts. She collected them when she traveled, back when you could fly with a specimen. But so the Montauk, it's from Asia, but again, it's a wonderful fall flower. And jewweed often grows by poison ivy, and it has an oil inside, and this will take away the itch and the burn of ivy. It's very cooling, and it actually, the reason why it's called jewelweed is when you hold the petal underwater, or when it's raining really, the beads of water will form on it, and it looks like jewels. Which is, there's other names for jewelry, but that's one of the names. This is my one of my favorites. This is ironweed, New York ironweed. It's a native wildflower. In the fall, it's going to bloom in August. Amazing purple blooms. Gets obviously taller than us. When it has passed in the fall, it's the shade of iron, the color of iron, and the stalks are very hard to pull out, so it's as strong as steel. But this is just a great feature to grow. It likes wet, this is the wet area. But if you have a reason to have a tall plant, I can't say enough good things about this, and pollinators love it. This is Joe Pye, which butterflies love. This is our bog to our left. Just have to point out this real quick, the button bush, because the blossoms are so cool. Here's swamp milkweed, which is related to milkweed. The butterflies love this, but this obviously loves swampy areas. Here's our cardinal flower, which is going to bloom red, lobelia. Here's more Joe Pye, which is going to bloom. Here is our pickerel weed, which actually you'll see growing in water. But so here we have one of the highlights of the garden too, which is carnivorous, which maybe you know or maybe you don't know. Here, let me get a good example down here. So this, instead of smelling like magnolia or locust, smells like rotting meat or rotting cheese, and hence it lives in a bog too. So the reason why it smells this way is because it's trying to attract big flies, or something that, you know, is attracted to bad smells, and that's what it eats, because then once it goes in, it's trapped. It doesn't close, but it can't get out because of the stickiness and the shape of it. Once it goes down, it's stuck, and then it passes away because it can't get out, and then the plant absorbs it as it rots. This is another little path called corduroy path, which the whole base of it is covered in skunk cabbage, which is very smelly. And in the spring, before the leaves come out, it's got its blossom, which again is a smelly blossom, but it's so unique. It comes out and it looks literally like my hand, but it's a maroon color, and it's really cool. And then these broad leaves take over, which is a fun forest floor. This is white cedar, which is an important plant. There's one butterfly that flies around the top, and it needs the white cedar because that's where it lays its eggs. And it's not bad. They have a relationship. That's a catbird that just flew on. So over here's one of the meadow lilies, as Eugenie pointed out, one left. So these are usually throughout the garden, and they point down and they hang down, and they're beautiful. We have them throughout. All of this stuff, this plant right here, and it's more throughout the garden, is turtlehead right here, which will be blooming soon, and it's such a fun plant. But this is a rare native flower called bottle gentian, and it's like a closed bottle flower. It doesn't open, and a big bumblebee actually forces itself in. So it's got one pollinator too, so it forces itself in. Wow! And you can see it wiggling in. Anyways, there's more of the mallow, the hibiscus. Eugenie and I believe this is Jerusalem artichoke in the sunflower family, which is a native wildflower. And there's irises in front of you. We're very lucky to have it because it's a native iris that's it's losing its habitat. So we're lucky to have such a healthy batch of it because it's endangered and threatened in the state of Maine and New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. This is an awesome plant called the cup plant, which is soon to bloom and soon to get higher. But the water gets trapped here, hence the name cup, and birds and other things will come and get water. And also it's semi-carnivorous. It has another name that I'm not positive, so I'm saying semi. But insects will sometimes drown, and then the plant again absorbs the fallen insect for more nutrients. So another way plants and nature have evolved. All right, so now we're out into the meadow, and feel free to ask any questions that you might have. This plant down here is the smallest iris in the iris family. It's already bloomed, it's gone to seed, it's called blue-eyed grass. We have that growing throughout the garden. It likes wet. We also have it in dry, sandy next to our cactus up there. But this is the crocosmia, which is, this jumped over here somehow. That was our original display, but hummingbirds love crocosmia. And this is native to West Africa, which I believe Shirley Cross brought back. California poppy, which was donated by one of our volunteers, but that is a native wildflower in California, which grows, you know, fields of it. You can see, I mean, I've seen some beautiful pictures in wildflower books of this growing. I love to have it here because it's such a great color, and poppies are just so fun. This is St. John's wort, which any plant with the wort last name, not last name, but attached wort to it means herb or plant, W-O-R-T. And that's to the Old English, and it's even older than Old English. It has its roots in German and some, you know, language before languages, but it means, they think, root. So anyway, so plants that have wort usually were used medicinally or superstitiously for different reasons, you know, and so that's one version of St. John's wort. This is a living fossil called scouring rush, which is around since the dinosaurs. Wow. And women too would use it because it is so sturdy as a scourer. They would use it to clean pans or floors or maybe something else that they needed to get the grime off of. But so this doesn't have a flower, this doesn't have your traditional seeds. It's like the ferns, which we didn't even get to really talk about. I didn't show you the cinnamon fern, but anyways, maybe you'll have to come back. This spreads by spores. And I was surprised it used to be here. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Concentrated there.
That used to be its area, and somehow it showed up over here, and it's doing really well. Which, if you're just trying to learn from plants without books, but just by being here or being around your gardens or your plants, you start to ask why. And one theory is, was it too wet down there? Did it need to move to higher ground, you know? So essentially maybe that's what it was doing. Here's one of our summer asters that's in bloom. Asters, there's so many different asters.
Blue lobelia is coming.
Here's our Queen Anne's lace, and I just want to tell you about this plant because I think it's fun, which is not in bloom right now. These are all its seeds, but this is called lady's mantle. This is just kind of like the St. John's wort. Women would make a mixture, a tonic, or maybe a tea, and is believed to decrease their chest size. Hence the name lady's mantle. So, you know, again, this is going back to Old English time, which I think is funny, but great. It's wonderful. And here's our amazing example of the crocosmia. And growing next to it is our cactus that winter's over and just was blooming. Here were 1, 2, 3, so there were 9 blooms, big, like intense yellow. I almost feel like sometimes I need sunglasses because it looks fluorescent. It's so bright, and the bloom is, again, almost the size of my hand.
Big yellow double rose.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
When I lived in Florida, I used to take a knife and tongs and cut it and put it in a crystal bowl.
Oh,
it was gorgeous.
It's a statement for
but
sure.
you cannot touch it because it has barbs that will stay
The prickles.
Okay.
So this is our meadow area again. Obedience plant supposedly got its name because you could move the flowers and they would stay there. So again, names are fun. A big daisy water. Here's another great example of swamp milkweed, which I just want to point out the orange one growing in there is butterfly weed. These are in the same family and called butterfly weed because it does take over. It's taken over my yard. Its roots are about this long, and like a dandelion, even if you leave this much, it comes back. There's our coneflower growing, our colliver's root, that white, almost looks like a white brush growing. That's a native wildflower. The coneflower is also a native North American wildflower. This is called partridge pea. Here's one bloom down here. Pretty soon it's all going to be in bloom. And this too, if you touch it, the leaves, it's not doing it yet, but once it's fully in bloom, as soon as you touch this, it closes. So it's also known as sensitive plant, which is great. It's really taken off because it spreads by seed.
Pretty leaves.
So it really took off. And it's called false indigo. And its seed pods turn black, which often people would think right away, is it dying, is it diseased? But no, that's just a feature of it. And like indigo, it was used for dye, but it wasn't the same quality as the true indigo plant. It's in the pea family, and its flowers look like, I don't know if you've ever grown sweet peas or anything like that, but it's got the pea blossom, which is just really pretty. So this is bushy St. John's wort, which is related to the other St. John's wort I showed you. And when this is, right now there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, I stopped counting. So I just saw 10 bees really quickly. When this is in its full glory, you know, all these brown things, when they're in their full blossom, this whole bush is a buzz, which I love. The pollinators just love it. It has a beautiful star flower, which is already come and gone. And the other neat thing about this is you don't see the residual dried flower. It's just a pretty green shrub, but the blossom is a silvery purpley blue, which is really pretty. Here's more prickly pear. Here's
the leaves turn yellow and they make wonderful flowering
because it's still sturdy. It's not like a dead yellow, you know. Here's crested iris, which is growing right by you as well. This plant, it just kind of blows me away because that's as high as it gets. However, its blossom is this big, which is so funny, and it's growing on the ground. It is so shallow rooted though, so whenever we weed by it, often we're replanting the plant because when you pull something, it will pull it, or we're just so careful with it. And this is heath, which is not native, but already bloomed, white flowers. I love heaths. I love it.
I have that around my post.
Yeah,
but it's the purpley one.
Blooms in the very early spring.
Right. It's almost, I feel like,
winter.
I was going to say, I feel like I've had snow here melting, and this is blooming as well. And the pink is, this is Coreopsis, also known as pixie. Bring her here. There's so many versions of Coreopsis. And here's our black-eyed Susan, which is a great rudbeckia, which is a great wildflower. Behind you is climbing fern, which is soft and fun. I mean, ferns alone, it's kind of like heath. There's so many versions and varieties.
They put some logs around in the garden to fill in some spots. And a chipmunk moved into the log and brought blueberries, and this bush came up.
That is awesome. And this is a high bush blueberry, and let's see, here's some of the berries that are to come in August. And they're all throughout it. So, I wanted to show you in here is mayapple, which is a spring plant, and it's like a sea of mayapple, and the blossom is underneath the big green canopy that's now dying. But the blossom is just a beautiful white flower that faces down, because its pollinator is, you know, a crawling bug, you know, so that's cool. But so Queen Anne's lace is in the carrot family, which I think is really cool. But it also looks like
Dill.
Right, it's in the dill family too. But it also looks like poison hemlock, which will kill you. But we've eaten this before, and the way to tell the difference is, one of the ways anyways, is because hemlock blooms exactly like this, has the same foliage, everything. But when you pull the root on this, which is a biennial, you get a white carrot. And it smells just like a carrot. So the way to tell is, does it smell like a carrot? And if it does, then it's edible. And so it spreads by seed, and you always see ants.
In the same family.
Same family, right. So many things. And so that's one way to identify plants, is the smell. Okay, here's Joe Pye, which is, we've got everywhere. This is a native plant, and it's going to be a beautiful sea of pink here soon.